Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the HEARTSpeak podcast. I'm Jordan, the producer, handling everything behind the scenes. Are you uncertain as to what anti-racism work is? Or are you still wondering how you even got here? Well, you're in just the right place. In our first episode, our host will be talking about who they are, what they do, and why they do it. So let's get started dismantling, because there's no middle ground in anti-racism.
When it's time for them to like.
Welcome, y'all,
To the HEARTSpeak podcast.
Glad to be here.
I'm Kim,
I'm Kenya.
And I'm Margaret.
and this is our first episode.
As you can see.
Yeah, you can tell already. We're a little nervous, but that's okay because we're excited to be here. Our first episode, and here to tell you a little bit about why we do this work, why it is so important to us.
And think of it as a conversation, sort of the behind the scenes of what it takes to be anti-racist facilitators, consultants doing this work day in and day out. We love what we do, but it also conjures up a lot of conversation behind the scenes for us as we do this work. So we're just going to take you on a little journey with us. Like I said, very conversational. We do a lot of body movement when we talk. We laugh a lot when we talk about this. We cuss when we talk about
A
it.
little bit, yeah.
Sometimes it happens.
So Kim, maybe just like tell about you and how you got here, and we can just keep it going.
Yeah, so how did I get here? Like, why am I doing this work?
It's a big question, right?
Yeah. Like as Kenya said, like day in and day out, behind the scenes.
Right.
This is not easy work. And we want people to be anti-racist. So like, what does that mean? So I do this because I think there's such a void in the space, especially from my background, coming from public health. I'll say that. And making sure that we can show up as our real selves, but fight against like all the things that weigh us down, that weigh different communities down. And so I do this work to bring light to my field, but then also I think it like connects me with other people. Like this is why we're here. Like we're doing this podcast because we're like, we know we need for people to see the behind the scenes, the realness of these conversations, how hard this work is, but in some weird twisted way, like it brings me joy because I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this work.
Yeah.
And so so I'll say that.
I think that's good. I think let's keep with that. Let's share, Margaret, we can share our why, and then I think we should just tell people a little bit about our backgrounds too, because I think that's really cool for people. How does one find themselves coming into doing this work? What have they been doing? What are they doing simultaneously while they're doing this work? But my why, I guess, is very similar to yours, Kim. It just brings me joy to see people come together and realize that the idea of practicing anti-racism isn't as hard as one might think it is, right? Yeah. And even in the moments where I feel like I'm going to pull my hair out because there's a lot of resistance in this work, there is always going to be a moment where someone has an experience that reminds you this is why we do this, right? Because people are learning how to connect with each other, people are learning how to talk to each other, and we can be the conduit for that. It's just it's exciting to be the connector for a lot of these experiences. But what about you, Margaret?
Yeah. What you think? As a white person in anti-racism work, I feel like I need to go back to often. I need to check in on, and I need to really evaluate, am I in alignment with this why? And I think for me, one of the things that comes up when I think about it is I'm really invested and interested in my life and in other people's lives, really thinking about change and evolution and those stages of change. When are we coming into change? And for me, as a white person, learning about and understanding racism understanding systemically what that means and what that looks like and how that impacts people, understanding my part in it, was a major stage of change for me.
Yeah.
And knowing that the potential and the possibility for me to have that evolution in my life and to feel like this is it, like this is what I needed to know and this is where I need to be, wanting to be a part of that with other people, with other white people, has been something that I just can't leave.
That's nice, because we need you with all the white people.
Notice she said, I can't leave.
I can't leave it.
That's the energy I'm here for that.
Energy.
Yeah.
I can't leave it. And I think I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about like why we show up in this way about this work, and it's just like, it's a part of me. Like, I can't explain to you why I'm still doing it, because I feel like it's such a part of who I am.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so it's like, I don't know, I just do it.
Yeah. It's so much to unpack in this first episode. We definitely got to tell y'all how we got here. We got to explain to you what the heck is full circle. Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
What does it look like? And then the name of this podcast is the HEARTSpeak podcast. And so HEARTSpeak has a very important meaning for us as well. So we got a lot to get into. And since you were saying, talking a little bit about your why and ended on that, like, this is, I can't go back, and Kim saying, I don't know any other way. Like, I think I want to just share a little bit, like, this is how I got here. Right?
Come on.
I mean, I could spend a lot of time talking about St. Louis. I'm not going to do that. Born and raised in St. Louis, and we have plenty of podcast episodes to go deep into.
We're going to get into
our very racialized experience in the Midwest. But that is where Kim and I both hail from, St. Louis, Margaret, you know that. And for me, it was being an undergrad and going there and feeling really lost as a college student, because it was a predominantly white institution. I had been raised and went through high school in a predominantly black community, and it was a huge culture shock, to the point where it silenced me. Like, I didn't even speak out in class. Like, I didn't want to say anything, because I didn't know how to be or talk around white people, right? At the same time, it was like the early 90s. And lots was happening in the background, right? In the country, you know? I mean, Bill Clinton had ran for office, and everybody said he was our honorary black dude because he could play the saxophone. Like, we had a lot going on. Like, we had a lot of, like, I don't know what that was. Anyway, I mean, I was a fan of Bill Clinton. I thought he could play a nice saxophone. But something happened midway through my undergraduate experience. The Rodney King trials happened. And we saw on TV quite, like, not to the level of George Floyd, but definitely being able to see footage of a black man getting beaten by police, like 4 or 5 police officers. For what appeared to be nothing. And so I guess we had expected that the outcome of that trial would be that the jurors saw what we saw. Right. And they decided that they would not find those men guilty, and chaos erupted, right? And the rest is history, for those of us who remember that time period. But that was a turning point for me. And I realized, I knew I was going to major in social work, but I realized where I wanted to emphasize my social work, my work in that field. And from that moment on, I was committed first to learning more about who I am and where I come from, and what it means to be black, what it means to be in my skin, what it means to be a black person. And I started the journey then, right? And I was so excited at my college graduation. We were driving home down Highway 70, headed from Warrensburg, Missouri, back to St. Louis, and I had all these ideas in my head, like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. The community, like, it was I was on fire. And I started that. And then fast forward, maybe a few years, I had relocated to Nevada and got an opportunity to become an anti-racism trainer. And that was back when you weren't supposed to get paid to do this. Everybody was like, if you're trying to be about social justice, you should do it out the goodness of your heart. Because this is the right thing to do.
Some people think we still should be doing that.
I can't even imagine today. Okay. And so, but it was a good time to get trained with some good people and really figure out, like, can I do this? Like, can I really do this? And that was kind of, I mean, so many other things layered in there, of course, but that pretty much is like what happened. You know, I kept doing it. And then Kim and I did a lot of work together as sisters. We're biological sisters.
How about that? Wow.
We're sorors of Delta Sigma Theta.
All those things.
Incorporated. We have founded organizations together. We've collaborated together. But when I first got out of undergrad, she was still like a middle school student, right? And I would drag her around to events and stuff.
Yeah. So
like, do sign-in sheet. Stand right here.
Talk about full circle, because that like rubbed off. And so as she talks about like how she came to this in pivotal moments, like, I'm the little sister who's like watching and like, okay, that's what we do, and that's what I need to know. Let's go. And so like, you know, being woke before woke was a thing, right? Like,
yeah, we call it conscious,
right? Conscious, right? And so, because I remember in high school when you had to write a term paper, I remember our English teacher was like, you need to write a term paper on an important topic or some current event and kind of break down both sides. And I wrote it on the school desegregation, like the busing. Which was a huge conversation, particularly in St. Louis at around that time. So this was like 97, 98. Yeah. And I just remember being so passionate about that. And so particularly around the Black students who would live in the inner city and would get bused out to the county schools where were predominantly white suburbs, for like a better education, right? Quote unquote. But the treatment that they would receive at these schools and how they would feel. But the flip side is how they would look at someone like me who would go to a predominantly Black school in a Black community. Like, why are you still at that Black school? Why are you still there with them?
Lots and lots of that.
And so like I'm trying as a high school student trying to process all of that, but like trying to be critically aware that something ain't right here. Not
and
knowing
what does this really mean?
Right.
Like what do all these questions really mean?
Right.
When they're asking you that.
Absolutely. And then not knowing, this was before anti-Blackness was a common word.
Right.
But feeling that this is like so anti-me and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So and furthermore, so my college experience, I went to an HBCU thinking, okay, I really want to be around more Black people so I can because that's what I've been around. So surely it's going to be like, oh my God, like Wakanda. But Wakanda, but I don't know what the word was.
I never thought about
but it was a culture shock for me because there was still so much anti-Blackness there around classism, who you were and where you from, and and this respectability. You had to be Black a certain way. You couldn't like fully be in your Blackness. It was just and it was just kind of like what? I came here for the opposite. And so I think that continued as I've kind of followed in my sister's footsteps. That continued to like catapult like my feelings into this work. Like, all right, so we got this over here, then we got this anti-Blackness thing permeating in all these spaces. Yeah. What we gonna do?
What we gonna do
about that?
And so many topics. And I definitely want you to share yours, Margaret. But you just made me remember, because we're dealing with this now in full circle. So many topics that are just like the elephant in the room. Yeah. And I think during that time, it was like HIV awareness and STIs. And it was so many different things. It's like, are we not going to talk about this? We're just not going to go there. Yeah. Right? And so You made me think of that when you said that. But what about you, Margaret?
Well, I agree. Like, I think about when you were talking, and that is just like what comes up for me is thinking about all these intersectionalities and how we've used them to take away from the conversation around anti-Blackness and what that can look like in different spaces. Coming up for me, my experience is very different. I grew up in the South. I feel like that is a part of me that is an important part of me. I'm Southern. I'm from South Louisiana.
I hear that.
Come on. It comes out a little bit when we're talking about, the jambalaya and gumbo. When the words start coming out, it starts coming out. But I grew up in a community that felt from a really young age without language. We didn't talk about race. Growing up. We didn't name the elephant in the room. And for me, even though we weren't saying certain things, it was very evident. Cities were still very segregated. Experiences were still very segregated. I went to a school from kindergarten through 8th grade. So for 9 years, the school that I went to, 9 grades, a larger private Catholic high school, and we had 3 folks of color in the whole school. So everyone looked like me. I learned how to act and behave in alignment with these messages I was being given in this institution. And anything or anyone who fell outside of that, I was also taught to think and feel a certain way about. Overtly and covertly, kind of under the line as well. And I think for me, what was pivotal in my life is when I was going to school and moving through college, trying to start college. I didn't go to college right away, which was a big thing for my family. You need to go to college, you need to do this. I started realizing that I started coming to terms with the fact that I was queer. And I started recognizing this community it literally felt black and white, and it literally felt, this is your box. You're Catholic, you're a girl, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to get a husband, you need to get married, you need to have kids. Kids, like you go to college for your MRS. You're getting your Mrs. And
that's I ain't never heard that.
And so
not your bachelor's, but MRS. Okay.
And so that was something for me that was always there. I will say there's a part of me always that I've been curious. I've been curious since I was a kid. My mama will tell you, you had to know why everything, and every answer I gave you, you just never stopped. And I feel like coming into my identity, understanding I was queer, it intersected with this curiosity that I just couldn't satisfy the need to understand more about the world. Where do I fit in on that? And I moved to Houston. On a whim, I saved a little bit of money, and I told my mom I'm leaving. And I left and came to Houston at 21 years old. And the second I hit this city and was flooded with diversity, was flooded with in every kind of way. It's like something just it felt like I could get my answers here. The question that I have that I just keep needing to know, the curiosity, I was going to be able to explore it here.
And you had started doing training, anti-oppression training. Like what was that you were doing?
So I graduated undergrad, and then I started school to become a social worker. I don't have my BSW, my bachelor's in social work, but I went for my master's in social work, and I interviewed with an agency, the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, Center for the Elimination of Disproportionality and Disparities.
Mia.
Mia.
Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
And I had the opportunity. I connected my instructor. Her name was Chandra. Hey, Chandra. Her name was Chandra, and we clicked. There was something about it, and she, gave me access to this opportunity to become trained in equity and inclusion workshops for the state agencies. For me, I'm talking about that change earlier and talking about myself and my why. For me, what was different about this was training for the system. It It wasn't white folks trying to tell everyone else what they should be doing to fix something about them and their family.
Yeah.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
This was, we have disproportionality across this state, and we are responsible for evaluating as attorneys, as judges, as caseworkers, as social workers, as doctors. What are we doing to these people?
Our role in this.
What is our role?
Yeah.
And that for me felt like that. It connected with my why of, now I know my responsibility and I have to be in this change making part for other folks.
Right.
For other white
Right.
folks.
All right. So it's really great that we all have this connection around like how we got to this work, and we've all been facilitators. We've even all taught, like, just for the record, like we all are professors or adjunct professors or some degree of teaching in higher ed. So being comfortable, being in spaces where you're facilitating learning to some level, which brings us to like how did we get here with Full Circle? And I think, Margaret, you can relate to this. I know Kim and I can. Your standard sort of DEI cultural
Here we go. Come on.
thing, right? It was like the one and done, right?
Yeah.
2 days and a half, or 1 day and a half. Or some folks even have the audacity to ask you to do it in 4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's just, and so we had been doing those type of trainings. And then Kim and I just got to having more conversations around how this isn't working. This isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, people are excited about it and they lean into it, and you can feel some of that energy in the moment of the 2 days or the 2.5 days. But what legit happens is folks go back to their workspaces and they get busy doing the usual, right?
Yeah.
And it's nothing against them. It's just their habit is to work and perform and show up in one way. And what you've introduced to them over 2.5 days, while they may have thought it was important, they don't quite know how to integrate or internalize it into their day-to-day work. And so Kim and I we sat down at a pancake place and with pen and paper and literally was order our food.
I remember what we ate too: maple bacon, $1 Million bacon.
Yeah, oh yeah, that bourbon sugar bacon, brown sugar bacon, something. We sitting there like, what if? Like, we could barely say it without laughing, because the sense of urgency. Like the emails that you get, like, can you come do this and can you do this in 2 hours?
And you only have 2 hours.
And can we spread this over like 3 weeks and 30 minutes?
30
And
minutes.
so we know what we're dealing with, but we were like, let's just take a pause and let's imagine what a training model would look like that was more similar to like a semester of college.
Yeah.
We literally said that.
Yeah.
Like, what would it look like?
Like if you had to go through a similar university course or experience.
Yeah.
Because what key to what you're saying is we're trying to change people's behavior. And you can't change behavior in like a 30-minute slot or like 2 hours in the afternoon, and you go back to your normal
with
behavior.
your copy of your PowerPoint with your notes that you may or may not have taken.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we were like, what are all the things that would go into changing such a behavior that is so ingrained into our being, right? And so it was like, pause. This is going to take some work. It's going to take some commitment. And really, like, in terms of full circle, right? We know people started at a point. And we know we wanted to take them on this journey. We wanted to take them around this journey to be a better version of themselves where they started, because they're going to keep going on this journey, right? And like have these moments to kind of strengthen whatever that path was for them.
And I think another reason why Full Circle resonated so well for the name of this business is by the time we got to 2015, in 2016, right? Obama, remember y'all, we were in a post-racial society.
Yeah, so why
remember that? So we were in a post-racial moment, and everything was great. Turned out everybody was living their life, living their best life with a black president. We're being facetious.
Yeah, no, it's nothing. It wasn't great.
But it really came through for that 2016 cycle, and
that was brutal.
every single thing that we had stated through our work, through our advocacy, every aspect and strand of frustration around like this isn't enough to kind of jam this in. It just came to light like, here we are. We're right back here. We're right back here with organizations, progressive organizations, white liberal folks, right, BIPOC folks, and everybody sort of at wit's end trying to understand why is there still so much racism in the world, what's happening, right? And then how we checked the box, we did the thing. We did the thing. We elected the president, and then we had these trainings.
We wrote a statement.
What is this that's just bubbling up underneath? Remember, like the news when Trump was running for president, and like all of it was like
economic anxiety.
But then with like the racist rhetoric was ramping up, it was like under the surface. This is just bubbling up under the surface. How? Why? What's happening?
What happened?
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we need long-term investment.
Yeah.
And so we need to get people to get past the shock and awe of, what do you mean more than 2 days? I don't think we can do that. Like, we have strategic plans to write, and we have this to do, and we got to get back to the work. Right. We got to serve the children and feed the children, whatever it is. And so so Kim and I legit were cool with we felt like we were going to feel some resistance. Yeah. And I was in a doctoral program, right? She was busy doing a lot of different things through the public health advocacy and maternal, like you were really deep in doing the Black maternal health work. And so it made sense for us to take our time, build a business model, just kind of put on paper like what we felt like it could look. And we just we were in like just kind of coasting through. And then 2020 happened.
I'm still like,
but right, like, and then all of a sudden it was, and to the defense of some of our clients and some of the awesome organizations we've had a chance to work with, many of them had started conversations with us prior to 2020. So there was already this emergence around. Wait, we need to do some long-term work, right? And so it just so happened we have been talking about what does a year-long model look like for anti-racist organizational change? What are all the components needed to go into supporting organizations who really want to do this work? So essentially, Full Circle is about long-term organizational change. It doesn't happen overnight, right? It can't happen without coaching. It can't happen without continued dialogue. It can't happen without us agitating and pushing folks, right? Which is why we probably should have wine while we're doing this podcast, because we need to
we're gonna have some wine next time.
Let the breath out.
Let it out, right? Because it's not easy, right? And so our model consists of long-term commitment, multi-year commitment. And we've managed to build a curriculum around it. We've also managed to introduce other components of what we feel like a firm needs to really push movement building work. That's why we're so excited to have Margaret with us, because Margaret heads up our communication strategy work, right? It's more than just in being in company or holding space for our clients. It is the behind the scenes. It is the messaging. It is how do we keep this discourse going? How do we create spaces where we can normalize talking about what it means to be committed to anti-racism? But
I think one thing that was coming up for me too, Kenya, when you were sharing about the movement building, that is something for me that has really resonated in the work I've done with Full Circle. It is bigger than having it be through this model of this 1 year engagement, really extending out what does it look like for it to be more like a course. And you called it an experience earlier. How do we make this an experience for people to start to think about those behaviors, to start to think about what am I holding? Because and you naming all of the things we see from our clients, there's a resistance phase.
It is.
And that is sometimes a year.
Yeah.
That resistance of getting people ready for the movement building it takes time. And so I think for me, it was the normalization of all of these things that Full Circle really coming into it was able to name and say, we're going to do this a little bit different than DEI.
Right.
We're going to do this a little bit different than either you come in and you do a few day training or a lot of times in the work, the pressure being put on one person.
The pressure being
and
put on
primarily a
one person.
BIPOC person.
Oh, gosh. To make the magic happen.
To make the magic happen. Someone who's hired by the org, someone who, you know, we're talking about white folks needing to address their stuff, and you hired a BIPOC person to tell you about yourself. Like, there's some stickiness there that we can get all the way into.
Yeah.
But for real,
it is.
It's about behavior, and we're still putting the work. We white people are still putting the work on this one person in an organization. So Full Circle flipped that. Y'all were the first space that I came into where I was like, damn, like, we're not going in and doing an 8-hour training.
No.
I'm going to do HEARTSpeak.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this holistically engaging and anti-racist transformation work.
Plug.
And it's going to be, it's not you go in for 8 hours and you leave.
Right.
It's deeper than that.
It's deeper than that.
It's deeper than that.
And because of the holistic wellness piece of doing anti-racist change work, you have to pace yourself, right?
Yes.
This is about liberation for all of us. And what continues to really give me a chuckle is that we still think that liberation is just about people of color, like people who look like me, people who look like him. This is about all of us. We have all been very in a very calculating and anti-human way tied together through white supremacy, right? And for some, they have benefited greatly from white supremacy, and for others, we have suffered, right, and lost lives and shed blood over white supremacy. And the only way we're going to be able to dismantle and sift our way through this is together, is through an expression of love, sometimes tough love. Right, like parents, you know, it's gonna hurt you more. It's gonna hurt me,
but you're gonna grow. You're gonna be better.
You're gonna be better for it.
But with HEARTSpeak though, like what's coming to me now is so interesting is when we shared our stories of like how we came to this work. Right, the beauty in HEARTSpeak is that I feel like we found a way to put that in a curriculum,
right?
To put those pivotal, those transformational pieces of coming to an awareness and like changing what was in you, right? And making that commitment. And we found how you can really put that into a training over some time for people. Over time. Stuff that we have been experiencing since we were young on this journey until like now in this work. It's like, oh, well, let's help you do. We can help you do that. Yeah, because this is how we're bringing our whole selves to this work. Yeah, in HEARTSpeak. Yeah, and I don't. It's
anti-racism as a term was not a popular term.
No.
5 years ago.
Oh my God.
Right.
Saying
saying white supremacy was not a thing. There's no way you could say that in mixed company without people gasping, right? And so, but it's been normalized since 2020, right? For most spaces, right? There are still plenty of spaces where you still. We've had people say, "Oh, can we change the language, or do we have to say that?" But I said all that to say there is some scholarship growing in anti-racism, right? There's research happening, which you love to see. There are, these scholarly discussions happening, but that's not what this podcast is. No. This podcast, if you want to know what it looks like beyond the rhetoric, because the rhetoric is important, because the rhetoric is what normalized the conversation. Yeah. We got to normalize it. But then what happens after that? How do we take the intellectual pieces that make us woke or smart or conscious or whatever the thing is. Yeah. How do we take that and put it where the goats can get it? As I used to listen to this show on Sirius.
Okay.
And the host used to say, "Now put it where the goats can get it."
Come on.
You know, and so it's like this idea of how do we humanize it? Yeah. And like you said, Kim, take HEARTSpeak as the curricula it is, and create real experiences. And we want to talk about that. We want to talk about that here, and we want you all to join us, you know, as much as you possibly can, to just kind of hear like what does it feel like for people to go through this? What does it feel like for us as, you know, people on our own journey and on our own path to being anti-racist and being liberated in different ways. The other thing I want to throw out, just to kind of like strand like what we hope to talk about, right, is we kind of want to freestyle a little bit here. Yeah. And just kind of talk about things that have come up, right? And then we also want to talk about the notion of being an anti-racist person committed to anti-racism, and that it doesn't take a cape, right? And so we have a segment called not your average anti-racist, because we want to just look into the lives and the experiences of people who do this everyday people, and what it's like for them, and what do they think of, and you know, some of the stuff that helps us even grow and develop our skill and our craft even better. But
because that makes sense. Well, it's necessary for folks to see just your average human doing this work, so you don't think you need to do all of this to be anti-racist. I don't think I can ever do that. Like, I'm not super that way or super woke or whatever that means. And so that not your average anti-racist, we're really looking forward to sharing more of that. And we really just want to talk about all the crazy mess that continues to happen and permeate society. Right. So we're going to be sharing that.
I also think one thing that's really important too with us coming together and having these conversations is we know from the work that we do that we can engage more deeply in anti-racism work when we build our capacity to talk about it.
When we build our capacity to talk about it.
It's not about the readings, like you said. It's not about that intellectual part. It's about how do we increase our ability to keep showing up every day. It's just talk about it.
Talking about it.
Just have a conversation. You don't arrive anywhere before you're equipped to do that. You just do it.
So the question we get a lot.
Google Maps.
The question we get, Kim, though, and Margaret, and I'm gonna let y'all speak to it. I'm just gonna throw the question out. So how is this different from DEI?
Oh Lord, I gotta take some. This is just Rockstar. I wish it was something else.
Because I think we should name that now so people can know, right? Because sometimes you can Google DEI and we may pop up. Because we've been using this term, these terms interchangeably since probably 2020. But like what is y'all's reaction to that question?
And this is not a knock on DEI.
Not at all.
No.
Of course not.
We need start the conversation, right? I feel and we need that space, right? Because I feel like we also say, if you're coming to us for HEARTSpeak, like if you're ready for HEARTSpeak, we're ready for you.
Absolutely.
And so like there are people who are not ready for this.
Completely.
And we let them know. We'll let you know. We're going to talk about it on this podcast, what it looks like when you're not ready for this work. And sometimes that means you may need to show up in a DEI space because either one, you're still trying to taste and see what this is. You're not really ready to eat the meal. Or two, you're just trying to perform for somebody and check a box. And so in either avenue you going down, you're not quite ready for the anti-racist journey, right? And so I don't know if I answered the question about like the difference between us and DEI, but I think it's a readiness and a willingness that separates this work from your traditional DEI work.
And again, some of our best friends are DEI consultants.
We know
DEI people. Plenty of really good DEI consultants. Who are incorporating anti-racist strategies into their work.
Yes, we need
but yeah, Margaret, what's your take when you hear that question?
My gut when that comes up to me, are you laughing because you know where I'm going to go, or are you afraid of where I'm going to go?
Come on.
The latter.
My gut for me the first thing that always comes up for me when I hear that is DEI for me feels like people are still ready for the situation to be transactional, and 2, to be given something. They want the DEI to me is that we take the course, we make the statement, we hire the person, we diversify our workforce. We just get more diverse people in the seats. We do all the things. And I am doing all of them this way. My transaction are outwards. HEARTSpeak, anti-racism work, your transactions are inwards. It is all in here.
For sure.
And this work shifts from what can I give and get to what do I need to do to think about those behaviors.
And that causes a lot of discomfort.
It does.
And I will say this about DEI folks, because I know that they're ruffling feathers. The vast majority of them. And the reason why we know this to be true is what we're recently seeing that's coming out in reports is it's just such a high turnover rate for those positions, right? They're burnt out. They come in with these amazing ideas. They have a vision for how to work with these agencies or corporations. And then it doesn't get realized, right? Because once they start pushing and agitating a little bit, those organizations decide, this isn't working out. Or the wind blows a different direction and budgets shift and change for a lot of companies and corporations. And for some odd reason, DEI becomes the first thing on the chopping block. So we know, and we can really speak. I can't speak to corporate America. I really honestly can't even speak to nonprofits. I can speak to higher ed though.
Come on.
And the amount of turnover, I can't even tell you how many DEI officers I've met where I am tenured, right? And so they often become the scapegoat, right? And they need to fix it, and if they don't fix it, they'll just plop somebody else in there to do it. And so I think I agree with you, Margaret. It definitely is like, what is this thing you're gonna give us or do for us? And I think it also is like, just sort of like checkbox of we did the thing, right? And we have diversity, equity, inclusion in place, and now I can do this,
right?
And then I can move on and do what I need to do.
Because for the most part, they've only stayed in the D part. They've only and when you start to move into the equity,
that part,
inclusion, and justice part is when you see the turnover.
There you go.
You see the pushback. Because, whoever leadership is like thinking the diversity piece, the transactional, the numbers, let's hire who we're supposed to hire and put the stuff on our website is what the work is. When you have changed nothing about the white supremacist culture and you are thinking that the folks that you're hiring, particularly the BIPOC folks, are supposed to assimilate to this culture that you've created. And when they can't assimilate and be acculturated into our thing, then that initiative didn't work out. So we're gonna cut.
And the DEI person's responsible for that.
Right.
So who does the work keep going back to?
Oh, gosh.
You're right. You hitting it.
My prayers are with all our DEI friends because that is some tough work.
And when we have to say when folks reach out to us and inquire about our work, we are very, very clear up front. Hey, just so you know, I want to be clear. We do anti-racism organizational change work. We're not DEI consultants, right? As of late, most people, I felt like most people have approached us knowing that that's what we do. But every now and then, you'll get a little bit of confusion there, right? Where folks are like, so wait.
Or sometimes it piques their curiosity because then when you're like, well, wait, what's the? But now what?
No,
a little bit more.
I actually
Yeah.
like that definition
Yeah.
of what y'all do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 But it can be a challenge because folks can come to us and hear that this is different and still have the same expectations.
Still
for
have
that
the same
transactional
expectations because they
relationship.
don't have any context
No.
for.
Exactly.
Also, I think there isn't any context for change work, right?
Yeah.
And which can be applied to life,
Yeah.
right?
Ugh.
If there is a problem, we find a solution, and through the solution, we all are happy at the outcome.
Right.
And we want it quick.
We want
And
it.
we
We
want
want
it
it
quick.
quick. We don't
There's an
want it
urgency,
long.
yes.
right?
I need to
So
get
make
this
it
done.
make it feel good.
Yeah.
And make it fast.
Tie a bow on it.
Yeah.
Nice shiny bow,
Yeah.
right? No
Yeah.
wrinkles,
Yeah.
no strings hanging from the bow,
Yeah.
and make it quick,
Yep.
right? And make sure that that gift is intact, so I can show everybody the bow I got
Look
and
at
the
the
gift,
gift.
right?
Oh,
That's
God.
kind of
Yeah.
what people are expecting, and so when we say, "Oh no, you're gonna be uncomfortable," no, for a little bit though, for a minute though.
Yeah. This is
The black people minute.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. A little bit.
Like not like not real quick, for a minute,
little
for a hot
minute.
minute.
A
You're
hot
gonna be
minute.
uncomfortable. You're gonna feel some type of way.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk a lot about that. Kim, you named it too. Who shouldn't be, who may not be ready.
Yeah. Just not ready.
And scenarios
Yeah.
that kind of come up in the
Yeah.
moment that
Right.
have, through best practices, we have been learning. Like, oh, okay, so when these dynamics are happening in said organization,
Yeah.
we need to pay attention to that. That's teaching us something, right? Like, it's telling us about their readiness, and it's also telling us about how we can better communicate with clients around, like, all right, here's what to expect, right? And how do we move from there? Now, what do y'all want to do? Right? So yeah, really, this is really good for us to do this.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yeah, and I just hope that folks get tuned in and lean in and get curious, because we plan to talk about so many things. Can't wait to bring in some of our other facilitators and some of our other allies and aspiring allies in this work who can come in and have regular conversation with us. We're meeting people all over the country, which is amazing. People are excited about this. We kept harping on the 1 year, and when you know it, we have clients who are like in their third year. And it's just it's something else when you really pause and think about it. Like, oh man, like they're still going, you know, and they're still invested. And so we're here. We're full circle. I could turn it over to Margaret because she's really good about sharing our socials and why it's important. But of course, we're on social media for all the reasons. Everybody
like
else is on social media, but it's a good way to stay connected. It's a good way to find out what events we have coming up and what training opportunities might be available outside of organizational change work.
Yeah, all of our links will be in our show notes. So if you go ahead and go to the show notes below on the podcast, you'll be able to find links to our Instagram, our LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. You'll also be able to find links to our website where you can follow us there. We do blog posts. We have great resources coming out, and you'll be able to find out more information about keeping up with the podcast and where you can find the podcast.
Awesome. So we just look forward for y'all to just join us on this journey and follow along. The stories are going to get real fun and interesting and deep. And so we're excited about where it's going. So thank y'all for watching.
Yeah, thank you. We look forward to seeing y'all next time.
See you later.
That's all for this episode of the HEARTSpeak podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and can't wait to be back in 2 weeks for a conversation on starting your anti-racism journey. Do you want to know more about Full Circle and the work they do? Please go check out our socials where you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as Full Circle HOU. That's HOU for Houston. Depending on where you're listening from, you can either find that information in the description of this episode or on the screen now. See you later.